So, hello world. This is my first video, and in it I wanted to go through my own experiences with being a landlord here in Sheffield. If you can't tell from the wonderful wallpaper I've got, that's where I am. So the house I bought back in 2017, so around 3 years ago, was a 2-bedroom terraced, mid-terraced, and it cost me 52,500. And I'd say the first 2 years or so was quite the uphill battle. There were terrible tenants. There was endless costs such as maintenance and trying to fix infestations as well. But I'm now on a point where, after all these failures, and I think all of them could have been avoided, I've now got to the point where I'm a successful landlord, I guess, so far, touch wood. So without further ado, here are 5 tips, my tips, to make sure you don't fail in those first 2 years. So my first tip is due diligence. Now this part I did not follow very well. On my first day picking up the keys, I was very excited. I went to pick them up. I went straight to the property because I wanted to inspect it and see what it was about. I barely got my keys in the door and a little head popped around from the next neighbour's house, and it was a guy asking if I had some room for a tenant, his brother. I said yes. I thought, fantastic. I've skipped all the expensive estate agents. In my haste, I had skipped some of the vital pieces of documentation. I'd done a tenants agreement, I'd done an EPC, I'd received references, and from there I thought, that's it, I'm done. What I didn't do, unfortunately, was to check the references thoroughly. So I thought, I gave them a ring, the person answered, and they said, yeah, they were a great tenant, and that was the end of it. I didn't really think much more of it. I thought that's all I need. Then, for about 3 months into the tenancy, I got issues with antisocial behaviour. There was issues with rent arrears. Yes, only 3 months into the tenancy. And then, in hindsight, I now realise that if I'd just done a little bit of research on the number and name they'd given me, I would have realised that they were relatives. So the name, afterwards, I put the name into Facebook, and I found out who they were, and I realised they were in the same photos at family reunions. And from that point, I thought, well, that's a mistake I'm not making again. The lesson to be learned here is do your due diligence. And for things like references, you can check on Facebook, which I did afterwards. You can check with people who live in the area. You can even check with potential landlords. I remember I checked afterwards with a landlord who I knew was in the area, and he'd mentioned the person. He knew that he was an unreliable tenant and he destroyed things and was antisocial. So from there, I realised that doing those checks beforehand were just as important. The second lesson to be learned is what can break will break. Now, for us, I tend to try and keep things in reasonable order. I've got kids, so it's not perfect, but the level of destruction that I saw was unbelievable, and it was again from this first tenant. So I remember going over there and seeing there was holes in the walls, there was wires that had been pulled out of the wall as well, and this was only after I'd given the notice due to rent arrears, and I really, in hindsight, should have taken proper inventory, which I didn't do, and taken photos of anything that possibly could be torn up. But if you've not got bad tenants, you can still expect to have some wear and tear, and if there's something that's not bolted down or made of adamantium or something, it probably will break eventually. So just be prepared to have some money set aside so you can fix those every year and continue your happy life as a landlord. Number 3 is choice is your friend. So when I say this, I mean I decided to go with the first person who I saw, little head pop around the corner. I thought great, and again, even the tenants after that, it was just kind of the first come, first serve. But on hindsight, again, very much hindsight, you can have a lot of choice, even for some of the poorer areas. So you can go through a lot of viewings, and on my last tenancy, I think I went through maybe 5 viewings per day for about a week until I got the right person. So that's the biggest part of it. It's not that hard to do. You send the advert out there, you'll be getting calls, loads and loads of calls coming through. You get them to come over. If they like it and you like them, then go ahead. But just make sure you've got enough of a list of people that you can have some choice when it comes to tenants. It's very important, and so far it's made me a bit more successful as a landlord. The fourth is gut feel. Now, it's a bit more wishy-washy and not kind of quantitative, I guess, but this is something that I kind of swear by now. And I realise that knowing that you've got a feeling about someone and knowing that you can kind of get on with them in some way and can communicate as well is very important, because it means that if there's any issues, you know they're going to come to you, and likewise, they know you can go to them, and it's easier to build a rapport and it's easier to get things done, which is always a great thing to do. And finally, number 5, this one is do your research on the maths. So make sure that the property you're buying is definitely worth it for the long term, even in the short term as well. So get the ROI, make sure that you can get long-term property and tenancies in that area. Make sure you've done your market research. And finally, I guess I'll throw another tip in there. Just have patience. If you're in it like me for the long term, then just perseverance. And if you do make mistakes, it's not the end of the world. You can rectify them, you can get them better, and you can learn from them. So thank you for listening, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes at least, and you can have a happy landlord life. So thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.